with our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, drafting 24 players in the 1993 NHL expansion draft. 2 days later, drafting 12 players in the 1993 NHL entry draft, including Paul Kariya with the first ever pick at the number 4 overall. You would think that our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, would be set, ready, and willing to go with the founding and the formation of their inaugural original roster in the expansion draft and the NHL entry draft. But many of you, and like myself, we know back then that a new team, an expansion team in the NHL means new opportunities, new positions, new jobs for NHL players and minor hockey league players, but also new opportunities for career minor leaguers to become NHL regulars. And on July 22nd, 1993, our Mighty Ducks Anaheim Ducks made their first ever free agent signings in center Sean Van Allen, left wing two-way winger Peter Duras, defenseman Miles O'Connor. About a few weeks later, on August 10th, 1993, the Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, would make their first ever trade in trading their draft pick to Montreal for right wing Todd Ewan and two-way winger Patrick Karnbach. I'm bringing up these names to you because back then, a new NHL team or any new NHL, MLB, NFL, even the NBA expansion teams means new opportunities, not just for fans, for the league to grow the sport, okay? But for professional hockey players or any pro sports team players to have an opportunity to seize and use that chance to fulfill a lifelong NHL dream in playing in the highest level in the NHL. Guys like Sean Van Allen, who was a center who had spent 7 years and seasons in the AHL, IHL back then. He played before he was signed with our Mighty Ducks. He played in the Edmonton Oilers farm system. He played in the then farm team of the Oilers, the Cape Breton Oilers, who before the 1993-94 expansion draft and before the Ducks founding won the Calder Cup for the Cape Breton Oilers. Guys like Peter Duras, a two-way winger, who also spent 7 seasons in the AHL and the IHL. He was given an opportunity, signed on an opportunity, as did defenseman Miles O'Connor. Guys like Todd Ewan and Patrick Karnbach, who was traded in the month of August, about at least a few weeks before the Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, first NHL training camp began in September, were also given opportunities to succeed, but also to use it to their own fulfillment and readiness. I bring these names up to you because of one thing. Have you heard of the word opportunity knocks? The meaning that a chance for you or for any hockey player to succeed and to earn a role in the National Hockey League, in the NHL, comes knocking, starts being appear in front of you. You would want to take that. Imagine being a career AHL player or a career minor leaguer in, say, the IHL or the ECHL back then. You hear a new team, of course with a funny name. You see a chance to not only grow the sport, but also to improve your game in taking over a spot that would allow you to become an NHL regular. That was the case for these players. That was the case for Sean Van Allen, Peter Duras, Miles O'Connor, and for Todd Ewing and Patrick Karnbach, who were traded on the 10th of August of 1993. Few months into the inaugural season of our Mighty Ducks Anaheim Ducks, Don McSween and John Lilly were also signed on. Don McSween spent at least 6 seasons years in the AHL and IHL of the minor pro hockey. John Lilly signed out of the WHL Seattle Thunderbirds. These were 2 other opportunities that would present itself to these players. See, it's like this. Our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, is like a reflection of life. Life gives people, such as those in living sociable lives and working every day, a chance to improve themselves, enrich themselves, and to go on for new and better things. That is what happened with our team back then. The Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, were new, they were young, they were having a different logo, a different name that is so unique, and a different hockey uniform look that was so different from the traditional hockey uniforms back then from the Montreals and the Torontos and the Detroit. It says something. It said something a lot about our team 28 years ago. We were the new kids on the block. And these players saw an opportunity to improve themselves, but to revitalize and also establish a long NHL career. Out of the players that I mentioned, Sean Van Allen was a player who best exemplifies that the opportunity given to you. Having won a Calder Cup championship with Cape Breton Oilers, he spent 12 seasons, including some seasons with Ottawa and with Dallas and Montreal. He spent 12 seasons. But during the first 3 seasons with our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, 3 seasons and years, he had 24 goals, 63 assists, 87 points. That's pretty good in contributing to setting the mark, setting the way for how this team is going to be like, and what Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, and hockey fans in Orange County, California would expect during the young and persevering years to come. Peter Duras also spent 3 years and seasons with our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks. Excuse me. Scoring 30 goals, 40 assists, 70 points. Todd Ewing, right wing, spent 3 seasons and years with our Ducks. Scoring 13 goals, 12 assists, 25 points. Patrick Karnbach, also 3 years and seasons, scoring 24 goals, 38 assists, 62 points. I'm bringing you this up is if you look at their stats before they signed on and traded to our Ducks, they were toiling in the minors. They were, I wouldn't say they were struggling, but they were doing what they do, working their way to one day become an NHL regular. And they did. At least all of them did, from McSween to Lilly to Sean Van Allen, as I say. These are examples of why this team is so unique. Because teams like our Mighty Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, give players a chance to succeed, including those that were drafted in the entry draft and they were plucked in the 1993 NHL expansion draft. It's important to know, and always important to see and understand why the Ducks signed players. They wanted to improve this team. They wanted to make sure this team was competitive from the get go, from hitting the ground running. Yes, you would think this team would be set and ready to go after the expansion draft and the NHL entry draft. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't. You look at teams now, basically in the Major League Soccer and basically recently with Seattle, they would sign free agents to ensure that they'll be ready when the puck drops, when the first whistle in soccer begins, or when the tip off in NBA begins. And that's what happened. That's very common. Back then, it was probably rare for many of us to have the Ducks sign these players. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very common. It's very common for teams and breaking into the, say, in professional team sports, no matter what team like sports it is. If it's the NHL, if it's Major League Baseball, the Ducks gave these players a chance. Now, did some of them had long NHL careers? Not really. Miles O'Connor spent played 5 games with us. Maybe earned an assist, but it was demoted down to San Diego Gulls, the IHL version back then, not the current version that we have now at the AHL level. It's always important that we appreciate their contributions, no matter how small it was. Especially if some of these players that were like that I mentioned spent at least 3 seasons and years with us. Because they left an impact. We know their names, we know what they look like, we know their faces. And it's better and it's always important to reflect and smile and remember what they did. Did most of them have long careers? Not really, no. Some of them either went back to Europe, playing the European Pro Leagues. Others, like John Lilly, got a taste of professional hockey, went over to Europe and played in the AHL and the IHL and other minor pro leagues. But in the long run, the Ducks were able to put together a roster from the expansion draft and from the entry draft and from the free agent signings for the first 3 months to able to create and establish an inaugural roster when the gathering of the Ducks, aka the Mighty Ducks training camp, the first training camp began in around the month of September. It's always necessary to reflect on that. There's nothing wrong with remembering and reflecting. All sports fans and team sports do that, especially in individual sports or team sports or combat sports. We do that, us Ducks fans. And looking back, it always makes me smile that this team that was not expected to say win over the Torontos or the Montreals or putting up a fight against any of the powerhouse teams back then were able to stand tall. And the Ducks, being the new kids on the block, you gotta give them credit. I give them credit as much as we do for giving these players a chance. I mean, many of you know that I always see the Ducks as giving players like J.S. Jaguar, Francois Beauchemin, and a few others a chance. These players that were the first Ducks free agent signings, and the players that were traded for the first time in team history, they were given a chance. They were given a chance to shine. They were given a chance to contribute to the Ducks' cause, and they did. And it's something to look back and, as I said again, reflect and remember and appreciate. It makes me smile thinking back then. So I think when the 30th anniversary rolls around, we should always appreciate what this inaugural roster did in paving the road and doing what's right and what's best and assembling the first roster in the Ducks history. And they did that by making these final finishing touches before the puck drop on October 8th of 1993. So that will be something I will cover in the next Ducks history moment. And those were my first impressions.